Bollards are one of the most consistent clues in Geoguessr, and that's why I'm here to help any of you interested in learning them. I'll be splitting Europe in 3 different categories. These are what I like to call standard European bollards, and by that I mean they use a thick white post and usually a rectangular reflector. And starting off in Germany, where they use white or orange reflectors with 2 circles at the back. And like most bollards in this category, they have a black strip around the reflector. And this is also the bollard they use in Luxembourg. The Hungarian bollard looks fairly similar to the German one, however these have a red reflector and it has more of a rounded top compared to most bollards. They also use a white back reflector. The Italian bollard is very distinct since the black strip around the reflector goes all the way to the top, and keep in mind Albania also uses these most of the time. Spain is easy to remember with its yellow reflectors, and they also have a slight dent in the bollard. Czechia and Slovakia unfortunately use the same bollard, however they are the only ones to use a split reflector. And they also use a square back reflector. Poland uses the same model as the German bollard, however they have a very distinct red band as the reflector, and they always have a number on them. Russia has a few different bollards, and a lot of the time they'll be paper thin. You'll always see a bunch of them around road connections. Greece uses a square red front reflector and a white square back reflector. Lithuania is one of the only few countries to commonly use orange reflectors. But be careful because they use white back reflectors. The Croatian and North Macedonian bollard has its reflector very close to the top, and North Macedonia also commonly uses this bollard. Portugal has a few different bollards, but they all have an incredibly small amount of space above the reflector, which can be either square or rectangular. Serbia has 2 main different bollards, and as you can see, if something about the reflector seems weird, then it's probably Serbia. These bollards are much thinner than the regular European ones, and since they are all very similar, I'll leave this graphic on the screen by Plunkett. I'll still quickly go over the methods I used to remember them. Latvia has a very skinny and tall white to orange reflector and, like Poland, often have a number on them. They are also hollow, unlike Estonia, which uses cylindrical bollards, and the reflector, which can also be white or orange, is shorter than the Latvian one. The Finnish bollard looks slightly similar to the Latvian one, but there is much less space over the reflector. Keep in mind it can also be cylindrical like Estonia, but the reflector is noticeably bigger. Sweden, as you can see by the graphic, uses 2 main bollards, but the harder one to remember is the second one, and unlike the others, the black border around the reflector is rectangular. The Norwegian bollard has a small diagonal black strip very close to the top, and the reflector is a different shade of white. And we are ending off Europe with the miscellaneous ones, starting off in Turkey, which use a basic white post with a red rectangular reflector. The Romanian bollard looks very similar, but you'll very rarely see any there. France has one of the most well-known bollards, being a big cylinder with a red or white reflector wrapping all the way around it. I'd also like to point out that you'll see this bollard in ex-French colonies like Senegal and Lebanon, and overseas territories like Réunion. Iceland bollards are tiny and completely yellow with a small grey reflector. Austria, Slovenia and Montenegro use a bollard with a black hat on it. To help distinguish Austria from Slovenia, remember that Slovenian reflectors are usually lighter and Austria uses back reflectors. The United Kingdom bollard is made up by black and white sections with a huge reflector. and you can often see this bollard in Scotland, while Ireland uses green and white sections with no reflector. Belgium has a couple of different designs, but they all use this shade of orange with a white post. But keep in mind, Denmark uses the same colour reflector, but they have a red stripe on the top of the bollard. Before continuing, I would just like to remind you that subscribing will be unmeasurably appreciated. But anyway, the US and Canada have many different bollards, however these ones have to just simply be memorized, and there's very few similarities between them. I think the most useful ones by far to learn are the Canadian ones, specifically Alberta and Manitoba. However, knowing the bollards for Wyoming and Nevada is useful as, in my experience, they are the most common USA ones. And thank you to Plonket once again for the graphic. I'll leave a link to their site in the description. And while we're in North America, the Mexican bollard is painted black at the bottom. Of course, in Oceania, we've only got 2 countries to go over. Australia's bollard is very simple, just being a small white post with a thin red reflector. And if you ever get it mixed up with Turkey, remember that in Australia it would be on the left side of the road. And yes, Christmas Island also uses them. And the New Zealand bollard is similar, but the reflector is a red band instead. Cambodia has a red pyramid top with yellow or white reflectors. Thailand and Indonesia use black and white blocks, again with a pyramid top. Also, Indonesia can sometimes be seen using a UK style bollard, or this one. The Malaysian bollard looks similar, but they are divided in 5 parts instead and use reflectors. In the rare chance you encounter it, South Korea uses bollards with circular, yellow or white reflectors. And Mongolia uses bowling pins. There isn't much to talk about in South America, but you sometimes find these bollards in Peru. Ecuador is known for having 2 reflectors on their bollards, and these are the most common versions of it. However, they don't do this all the time. And I would like to remind everyone that bollard meta is very consistent, but you shouldn't always count on it 100% of the time. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed this one. As always, any form of support is appreciated, and I'll see you soon.